Right. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the IO Foundation's hybrid event on human rights and digital spaces, dubbed as Building the Digital World We Need, Bridging Tech and Policy. So, this event is a 3-day program organized by the IO Foundation, TIOF, with the support from an international coalition of digital rights organizations managed by global partners Digital in London. This event in Malaysia serves as a hub of the Asia Pacific Regional Internet Governance Forum, which is also happening at these same dates. This means, my dear friends, we are not the only one here physically, but we have participants joining us online, and we will be connecting with the Singapore team in hours of the days to join the APRIGF. So with this setup, we'd like to ask for everyone's patience on a few possible technical challenges and also that we may encounter, and also some delays that might occur. We would like to also request not to stream or broadcast to your online accounts for bandwidth restriction. We would like the TIOF would like to extend gratitude to the Malaysian Public Policy Competition organizers for the partnership to make this event possible. The same gratitude is also extended to ELSA Malaysia for its work on the policy review. So during the next 3 days, we will engage with each other on conversations pertaining on digital world and our lives. In particular, there will be an opportunity to contribute to policy making by providing feedback and input into the draft policy brief on business and human rights in tech proposed to Malaysian tech companies and the Malaysian Technical Working Group developing the national action on business and human rights. For this hybrid event, we are using AMITS as our main platform. And AMITS offer different interaction mechanism, and we will guide you through these spaces as we move along during the next 3 days. An important interaction point, we wish to encourage everyone to make use of the AMITS Q&A function for a seamless Q&A presentation. For those who are able to connect to AMIT, you are encouraged to use the Q&A function. And for those who are not able to, don't worry, you can write down your questions on the post-it paper provided on your table cluster and pass it to Dexter for posting. So some house rules. We will be guided by TOIF's Datum House Rules, which is an adaptation of the Chatham House Rules, but tweaked to the context of digital space, such as social media. And if you have any concerns at all, please do not hesitate to approach the TIOF team, and you recognize us as those who are wearing the orange name tag. So without further much ado, I'd like to invite the founder and CEO of IO Foundation, Mr. John, to welcome us all, introduce TIOF, and tell us a little bit more about APRIGF. Mr. John.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for coming today. I hope there's going to be a bit more sun as we move along. So, as Edwin was introducing, we'll be running this 3-day long event that is going to be covering a number of things. We will be covering elements of presentation of our DCDR framework. We'll be covering the presentation of our policy on business and human rights, specifically on the tech sector. And we are doubling all of that with the IPR IGF Malaysian remote hub that is happening here, but the IPR IGF itself is being held in Singapore. We will also be having a prepare session for ICANN 75 that will be hosted by Kuala Lumpur next week. So that will be on Wednesday. And I think I should also introduce a little bit the IO Foundation. So our organization is an international tech NGO. We advocate for data-centric digital rights, which is a fancy way to try to encourage governments so that they implement policies for public consumption technology that are going to be not only reflected as a piece of paper with a number of regulations, but also a technical standard associated with the regulations, so that technologies, when they read those policies, know exactly how they are supposed to be implementing them, which at the moment is pretty much the big challenge that we have in technology. We've been operating for the past 4.5 years, mostly in Southeast Asia, although we had some international presence in certain events. And in the past almost 4 years, we've been working on our initiative on business and human rights in the tech sector, specifically in the context of the Malaysia. Tomorrow you will have a bit more of information on what has been the development of that collaboration with the NGOs and the government in the tech sector. Our proposal for the upcoming National Action Plan on Business and Human Rights for Malaysia, specifically on the tech sector. And you will also have the chance to participate in the workshops that are going to be organized around that policy brief. Without further ado, I will also wanted to mention about the APR IGF remote hub on itself. So on the tables, you're going to find some QR codes to be able to register to the IPR IGF as a remote participant. Meanwhile, we've been showcasing some of the sessions that were more akin to what we were doing in our event, and we'll be connecting to those sessions and projecting them on the screen so we can participate as a hub ourselves. For those of you who are remotely watching this, you can either participate through us or yourself if you want. You can go to the IPR IGF website, which I believe is www.iprigf.asia, and you find then the registration and you can participate remotely as well. We would recommend you to do it through us because then we can pass your questions as well directly into the hub when we connect with them. I believe that's it. Will be any questions from you at the moment? I wonder. None? Then I'll bring it back to you, Edwin. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Mr. John. So everyone, now is the time that we'll be connecting to the APRIGF in Singapore. So in the meantime, sit back and relax as we set up and connect with APRIGF in Singapore. So during this APRIGF session, we encourage you to kindly write down your comments or questions, and we will collect the questions and send them over to APRIGF for answering. So as for now, do sit back and relax as we connect to Singapore. Thank you. Also, a further note, if those of you who haven't had your breakfast, we do have kueh and also water at the back of the hall. So feel free to get some refreshments for yourself, right?
So I'll be repeating for those who are going to be online at the moment. I was mentioning that we haven't had the opportunity to try the remote connection prior to this because they only released the remote links for the Zoom sessions for APRGF this morning in and around 3 o'clock in the morning, I think. And so we are just trying to figure out right now how the connection functions, if they're going to be providing a general Zoom over a stage, or they're going to be using different computers. We don't know. So we're going to be testing this out, and hopefully tomorrow we'll have everything much more smoothened out. I would say that also because we are connecting remotely to them, we are a little bit beholden to them not having any difficulties and starting their sessions on time. So we'll see. Does anyone have any stand-up comedy abilities that will kill the time very nicely? Well, just you wait. Since we are here, if there's any question that you guys want to ask us about the work we've done before, I'm more than happy to answer and to entertain.
The percent is a 7, while the interpreter is 1% standby.
Testing mic.
Testing, testing, testing. Testing. Hello.
So for those who may not have ever been involved with IGF before, this is a very good opportunity to introduce slowly as over there. Our intention is to try to provide venues for local Malaysian technologies and policymakers to participate in this kind of events. As in, at this very moment, two things are lacking in the IGF conversations, in our opinion. The first one is technologies, big time. By my estimation, I would say that 10 to 15% of the people who participate in IGF are technologists. There's very little technical sessions. Most of them, the ones that I have seen, are usually organized by either the IETF or by one of the big tech companies. And there isn't that much in terms of participation of Malaysian technologists. I believe that the only Malaysian person that was not in the circuit, so I knew Malaysian people who work for Internet Society, which is an organization that is part of all of this ecosystem, so that is expected. But in terms of outsiders moving into participating, I've only met one Malaysian, one time in Berlin, 2019. That's it. Even during the ITF meeting that was held in Singapore a few years back, if my memory doesn't fail me, there was only 4 Malaysian technologists who actually went and attended in person. And it's literally crossing the border. So there's very little information about what is it, how to participate, and what are the opportunities to participate. And it's very simple, I would say. They got fellowships and so forth. So for us, the idea was to have a first opening door to how this is working, so that eventually we can get more and more interest from Malaysians to start participating, sending their own sessions, and be a bit more present into it. Hopefully, we attain some of those objectives today, or at least during the 3 days. And they have a background music, I can see. Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen,
A broad variety of topics. From they're starting. I shall answer that question later.
I don't need that. Hello? No, I don't need that.
I think I now don't have to yell at you all. How do you do, ladies and gentlemen? My name is Cheryl Langdon Orr. I'm from Australia and I am your MC for today. Today we have in our opening plenary an
Recording in progress.
packed set of exciting topics and speakers. We are not going to waste too much time getting started. And in fact, what I'm going to do is try and find my Andrew. Where is my Andrew? Ah, she's behind me. I just wanted to do one thing before I hand over to our focus on the speakers. I just wanted to take a moment, and if I can have a moment of your attention, just to, with greatest respect and enormous thanks and heartfelt thoughts, just recognise the two ministers from PNG and their delegation who have managed to join us here today, despite the tragic and terrible circumstances of the earthquake back home. So our sincere thanks for the efforts you've made to stay with us here today. And I'm sure everyone in this room is equally worried about how communications will be getting up and how things will get back to normal as soon as possible. So with that, we're going to have a very tight timetable today. You're going to have 30 minutes with a little bit of fast tracking through a number of exciting topics. And then we're going to get interactive for the second hour. So Andrew, with that, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Thank you, Cheryl. How's everyone doing today? Excited? Before I say a few words, I would just like to start with my sympathies and condolences to the people of Asia and the Pacific and other parts of the world who were suffering as a result of the flood, natural disaster, internet shutdowns, internet sanctions, political differences, and economic poverty. Yesterday, you may have read about the earthquake in Papua New Guinea. Our sympathies to the ministers of PNG, the delegation, and our colleagues and friends from PNG who have been affected by the earthquake. Our thoughts are with you. This week, I want you to put yourself in the shoes of others who are without meaningful connectivity, affordable devices, without electricity or the basic necessities. I'll let you ponder on that. Distinguished guests and Honorable Minister Timothy, I'll speak slow, sorry. Distinguished guests, Honorable Minister Timothy Masu, Honorable Minister Peter Chamalili, thanks for joining us today. We are grateful for your presence, and to our AP RAGF, AP NIC, AP SIG community. Without you, we would not be here. So thank you. Without our key partners, as you can see all over the banner, we would not be here. So I am very grateful to our partners, our sponsors. I want you to think about multi-stakeholder community this week. I'm not going to take too much time with my speech because Cheryl has told me 2 minutes only. But what I do want to emphasize is think about multi-stakeholder community. Whenever you are in the different sessions, think about the people that cannot be part of this event. Think about the persons with disability. We have a few here, Bhaskar, Manik, we have Josh here. They need your help. Help them throughout the session. Invite them to your session. And we also have the youth. Please include them because they are the next generation leaders. I'm not going to say too much because it's going to be a fantastic week. There's going to be lots of topics and key themes, but I want you to, whenever you are in a session or whenever you are moderating, put people at the center of your heart. Forget about technology, forget about process for now. People is what you need to put at the center of your heart. So thank you for those. Thank you for being here. And I am excited to say that I will also be moderating the opening plenary. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Anju. I'll just introduce myself as thank you everyone for joining. I'm Edmund Chung from the Secretariat of the APRIGF. From Asia, we are really honored to continue to serve as the Secretariat for the Asia Pacific Regional IGF. This is the 13th installment of the APR-IGF, and actually the second time that Singapore is hosting the APR-IGF. I'm especially grateful for Singapore, actually, both on the second time that APR-IGF was held, and this time first time coming out of the pandemic, because both of the times Singapore played a very important role to really pass on the baton to allow APR-IGF to build and become much stronger. And I think this year, especially as we come out of the pandemic, the collaboration across the Asia Pacific is something that is really meaningful for me. And the Secretariat also wants to extend our great appreciation to all the supporters of APR-IGF, especially our constant, our longtime partners, APNIC, ICANN, APTLD, the UN, the United Nations IGF Secretariat, and also great to see new partners supporting the program, including Article 19. But a special thanks really to APNIC and APNIC Foundation that made this year's APR-IGF possible. Coming out of the uncertainties of the pandemic, we were, really grateful for APNIC to pick up the co-host position to make this event happen. .Asia, of course, has been working very closely with APNIC and APNIC Foundation throughout the year to make this, gathering possible, alongside a quite a historical event, I would say, including APNIC's own conference that will be happening here, as well as the AP School on Internet Governance. So coming out of the pandemic and also with seeing the human atrocities and the natural disasters that was mentioned, I think this is a community that is looking forward to really coming together. And this is what this year's theme is about, a people-centered internet. And getting people here is something that we are really excited about. As we gather here, actually, as those who work for the internet, we must not forget that making the internet work for the people is really why we are here. So I would like to also focus on the people that are gathered around here, especially the young people. And one thing that I really am very proud of for this community is that the Asia Pacific Youth Internet Governance Forum is actually the longest standing youth IGF movement event around the world, and it continues to work on it. So without further ado, let me help me join in a round of applause for those who really helped us make it happen, especially APNIC team and my team, including those many of you who know Christine Orr and Jennifer Chung, to make this happen, and hope you have a very fruitful event going forward. And thank you, and welcome to Singapore.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. My name is Jenna. Thank you for having me to represent the Asia Pacific Youth IGF to deliver a speech at the opening ceremony of the APR-IGF 2022 today. This year, the YIGF was held during the past weekend at National Library Board with a well-attended record with 25 on-site participants and 21 remote participants from 13 different countries and 4 remote participants joining from Taiwan local hub. In this 2-day event, our youth participants explore a wide range of topics from algorithm bias to cyber crimes to transformation under the influence of metaverse, NFT, and other emerging technologies with 21 guest speakers from different backgrounds, ages, and countries. Youth at Crossroad, trusting in common future with no one left behind is the theme of the YIGF this year. Resonating with the overarching theme of APR-IGF, we highlighted the importance of influence, inclusions, trust, and sustainability in internet governance and youth participation. This year, we managed to co-organize the Youth IGF along with more than 10 youth initiatives and youth NRI from the Asia Pacific regions and had a youth leaders dialogue with leaders of different initiatives to explore strategies for the enhancement of youth participation and Asia Pacific representation and global level. With our strategic design of the Youth IGF program this year, I'm confident to guarantee the contribution from youth community will be reflected in the synthesis document and the discussion in the next few days, as well as the youth statement developed by all our youth participants at YIGF this year. Lastly, I would like to take this opportunity to thank you, the Youth IGF team formed by 6 organizing committee members, 4 online facilitators, and the youth moderators from the Taiwan local hub, as well as all our supporting organizations for introducing and bringing our youth representative to Asia Pacific IGF and make our meeting such a productive one. We believe collaboration is the first step towards meaningful participation. And we, the youth, are taking this one step and inviting all of us in this room to make this baby step a big one. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Honourable Ministers, PNG Minister for Communications and IT, Timothy Masiu, the Minister for Internal Security, Peter Simalili, thank you. Also the Special Minister of State for Singapore, Jamil Puthacheri, and friends from the IGF, the Asia Pacific Regional IGF, MSG Chair, Anju, the Secretariat, Edmund, the MAG Chair, Paul Mitchell, the UN Envoy on Technology, Amandeep Singh Gill, and last but not least, all of you here on site and online, welcome to Singapore, to APR IGF, to APNIC 54. I'm Paul Wilson, I'm the head of APNIC. We're the Asia Pacific Network Information Centre, one of the 5 regional IP address registries of the world, and we've been working to support internet development in this region for the last 25 years. This APNIC event this week is the 54th APNIC conference that has been held since about 1993. But it is the first one after quite a long break, and we've been very excited to be back face to face. A lot of people seem excited. We seem to have nearly 2,000 registrations for this event. Very optimistic, I think. From 90 economies, we might have 800 people here on site, so it's a fantastic number. What's also really special for APNIC this week in Singapore is to be the co-host of APR IGF at APSIG, which is being opened right here, right now. We've been a strong supporter of the Internet Governance Forum since it started in 2006, back after the Tunis Information Society Summit. But in line with our interest in the Asia Pacific region and our focus, we've been strongly supporting the APR IGF since it started. We've got a commitment to build the linkages that start locally in our region and that come through, that are aggregated at the regional level here at the regional IGF, and which then can converge with others at the global IGF, and the global IGF is coming up later this year. The voice from this region, the fastest growing region for the internet in the world, is still not heard enough at the global level, and that's why events like this week that are happening this week are really important to increase the volume of our voices, to spread them more widely and into that global forum where we can make a real difference. The theme for APR IGF this year, people at the centre, looking for an internet that's community-led, inclusive, sustainable, and trusted, is really important. And I'm really looking forward to finding out how, as an internet community, we can all uphold the people-centric nature of the net. Because the internet, after all, it's a network of networks, distributed, decentralized, and open to everyone. Its success comes from the fact that it's scalable, flexible, adaptable, and resilient. And over the years, it's been incredibly successful in what it does to connect people together. Part of that success has been the multi-stakeholder model, without which the internet would be a very, very different thing these days. It's been absolutely critical to the internet's success. The ISTAR organisations, such as ISOC, IETF, ICANN, the RIRs, including APNIC, have been at the forefront of upholding the multi-stakeholder model. And it's through this model that the internet can continue to succeed and to evolve as it's done for the last 20 years. In fact, even while we've been talking about multi-stakeholder internet governance for 20 years, it's been continuing, the internet has been succeeding. That said, we can't ignore the challenges of today that the internet governance community is facing, particularly when geopolitics these days is leading towards real pressures for internet fragmentation. So at this year's APR-IGF held in conjunction with APNIC 54, I want to just mention a couple of sessions that we've been jointly organised. The first is at the APNIC Cooperation SIG, that will be taking a close look at the impact and the consequences of conflict and of internet fragmentation associated with that. Secondly, a session on inclusion in technology, which explores diversity issues in ICT and in the workplace. And I invite all of you to attend these joint sessions in particular, but along with everything else that's happening this week in a really exciting program for both of these events. In closing, I just want to reflect on the sustainability of APR-IGF itself. Like the internet itself, we really shouldn't take this for granted. It's a fairly complex and costly exercise. It's led by a small team of really dedicated people, a couple of whom, Anju and Edmund, for instance, have been involved for quite some time and really supported this event, along with teams of folks from .Asia, from the APR-IGF Secretariat, from APNIC staff too, all to make this event possible. So we really are proud to be co-hosting this event. We invite the APR-IGF community to, as I said, to take a good look at the APNIC event, our program, and vice versa. And please do that. Thank you. And once again, a warm welcome to Singapore. Thank you.
Thank you. I get a runner, which is wonderful. We're now going to have two videos back to back. The first one is from the Envoy for Technology from the UN Secretary General's office. And the second one is from the Head of State and Ministry of Communications, unless I have forgotten everything. I'm assuming we're ready to roll and go.
Good morning, good afternoon from New York. I'm delighted to join the Asia Pacific Regional Internet Governance Forum and share a few thoughts about the priorities of the Tech Envoy's office and some of our work packages related to the Internet Governance Forum and multi-stakeholder discussions on the proposed Global Digital Compact. But I want to begin by congratulating the organizers on holding this conference in a hybrid form. We've had 2 years of online meetings, so it's good to be coming back together either in person or in hybrid form. There's really no substitute for getting together in these settings and building the communities that sustain the meaningful discussions around internet governance, around cyber issues, and around digital policy. Since its inception in 2010, the APR-IGF has positioned itself as one of the biggest regional platforms for internet public policy discussions. And I'm sure that this year's discussions would continue to build on your past achievements. And I'm looking forward to getting a report back from some of the consultations. And I'm sure that these would prove to be very useful inputs into the elaboration of the Global Digital Compact. A few words now on what the Global Digital Compact is and why it is important. Many of you are aware that the Secretary General has called for a summit of the future. This suggestion was a part of his Our Common Agenda report presented to member states after the 75th anniversary of the United Nations. Multilateral processes are even more essential today than they were 75 years plus ago when the UN was founded. There are multiple crises facing the planet, from the climate emergency to food insecurity and to war and conflict in many parts of the world. At the same time, the world is much more integrated today than it has ever been in the past. And a key dimension of that global integration is technology. The internet in particular has worked as an immense public good and brought people and communities together. It has made it possible for us to be sitting in one place, to book restaurants and flights in another place, and to be in touch with loved ones, even during lockdowns, and to perform essential functions, to avail of essential services from banking to other types of daily needs that are a part of our life every day. Now, this great global common also faces some challenges. These challenges include the danger of fragmentation. There are certain cracks at the content layer of the internet, and if we do not handle this well, if we do not reinforce digital cooperation, these cracks could spread down to the foundations. So therefore, the Secretary General has found it essential and necessary to call for a global digital compact. This global digital compact would be a charter of our shared values for an open, free, secure, and inclusive internet for the future. This would also be a document that takes us beyond guiding principles to urgent priorities and to approaches to strengthen digital cooperation. This would be a comprehensive document covering everything from connectivity, content, human rights online, to digital public goods, digital public infrastructure, collaboration around AI, and ways to combat misinformation, disinformation. Of course, the elaboration of the Global Digital Compact would be a member state-led process. The incoming President of the General Assembly would take charge of this process, and the ministerial meeting in 2023 would be a key milestone on the way to the Summit of the Future in 2024, where the Global Digital Compact is proposed to be adopted. At the same time, digital, as you all know, is multi-stakeholder by design. The internet in all its forms, in terms of the content layer, the applications layer, or the infrastructure layer, has been multi-stakeholder by design from the beginning. So we must ensure that multi-stakeholder inputs, multi-stakeholder consultations are meaningfully linked to the member state-led process. And my office will work with other colleagues, including the IGF Secretariat, to ensure that these multi-stakeholder perspectives are collated, curated, and are fed meaningfully into the member state-led process. I'm looking forward to the Internet Governance Forum meeting in Addis Ababa, where the 5 themes on the agenda are closely aligned with the themes of the Global Digital Compact. In November this year, therefore, we'll have a great opportunity to put our minds together, think about the current challenges, potential solutions, future pathways to the further development of the internet, and the vast array of applications, social and economic, research and scientific, that sit on top of this essential infrastructure. I want to close my remarks by saying a few words about the need for digital cooperation and the importance of human-centered digital transformation. I'm very glad that you picked up this theme of human-centered approaches this year. If the digital transformation does not deliver for us as human beings, if it does not respect our human rights, does not respect our human agency and our freedom of choice as humans, then this transformation cannot be for the good. So we have to ensure that digital transformations leave no one behind. They benefit the largest number possible. If there are people who are getting left behind, we have to ensure that there is a special effort to make sure that the benefits of connectivity, the benefits of content and knowledge available through connectivity are extended to them. We also have to ensure that deeper divides around data and AI, around affordable and meaningful access, around content creation are addressed, and so that everyone can contribute to the digital transformation. It's not a single digital transformation, it is digital transformations in plural. Digital cooperation will play a very important role in keeping the digital transformations human-centric. There are gaps in governance. You are aware of them. You will discuss them. There are challenges around cybersecurity. There are challenges around misinformation and disinformation. And these challenges do not respect boundaries. They do not respect silos and subject domains. Therefore, digital cooperation is essential. It's an essential part of building an inclusive, secure, open digital future that leaves no one behind. I wish you all the very best in your deliberations, and I look forward with great anticipation to learning about the outcomes. Thank you.
Ministers, Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It's my pleasure to address you all today. The internet has profoundly transformed societies and economies across the Asia Pacific. Today, over 2.5 billion individuals in the Asia Pacific use the internet in one form or another. The internet's open architecture has dissolved national boundaries and created vast economic opportunities. It has also drastically lowered the costs of collaboration and outreach. However, the internet also poses unique challenges for governance. First is the challenge of driving greater inclusion. Amidst the digital revolution, there's a risk that individuals who lack the resources or the necessary skills will not be able to reap the benefits of the internet, or that companies who are not at the digital frontier will be left behind. The second key issue is that of security and trust. The internet in its nature is open, and its anonymity creates opportunities for malicious actors to take advantage of the vulnerable. This can take the form of misinformation, cyber attacks, or fraudulent schemes, of which crypto scams are merely the latest iteration. To ensure an open, inclusive, and secure internet, international collaboration is key. The digital commons cut across state boundaries, and if we are to govern it effectively, countries must work together, whether bilaterally, regionally, or at multilateral fora, to set the rules of the road for an increasingly fluid and contested space. This will allow us to harmonize standards, respond to shared threats, and cooperate on cutting-edge technologies. For small countries like us in Singapore, we are often price takers internationally. This approach is key to our digital sovereignty. Collaboration also allows us to learn from each other's experiences, whether in fostering inclusion or enhancing cybersecurity. It's because of the importance of collaboration that platforms like this forum matter so much. I am sure that the conversations over the next 3 days will build the partnerships we need to navigate the challenges of governing the internet. Thank you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Can you hear me? Okay, I've got another UN-style speech, but I'll try and be quick. Excellencies, Honorable Minister Timothy Masu, the Honorable Minister Peter Chimalili, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the United Nations Secretariat of the Internet Governance Forum, it is my great honor to address you today on the occasion of the 13th Asia-Pacific Regional Internet Governance Forum. After 2 years of intensive online meetings, it feels so good to see so many people and colleagues here in beautiful Singapore. Indeed, looking back, the past 2 years have been different and difficult. Much has changed. Many have faced loss in various forms. The internet and its governance have been largely affected and put to the test. In many parts of the world, the past 2 years has created unprecedented conditions for the internet to show its true power as a social economic enabler. At the same time, we saw inequalities among people skyrocketing suddenly. Those that did not have a connection to the internet, reliable devices, or essential skills to use them were the ones who had zero chances to work, to go to school, to get informed, or just stay connected to others. In other words, zero chances to exercise some of the basic human rights and live dignified lives. Offline meant being cut from essential services and opportunities. The pandemic also brought vulnerabilities to a higher level. Some reported over 100% increase in cyber attacks on critical digital infrastructure, financial records, and databases, as well as in creating fraudulent websites, which altogether have led to significant financial loss. Lessons, hopefully, are learned that the internet is essential for people and that its accessibility, affordability, safety, and security for people depend solely on people. And this means that stakeholders from the governments, civil society, and academia, business, and technical communities all have a role to play in ensuring an open, safe, accessible, affordable, human-centric internet. Your main theme, envisioning a community-led internet that is inclusive, sustainable, and trusted, can and should be looked at as a motto to guide us in creating and preserving the internet we want and need for us and for future generations. The good news is we have a system for such envisioning. This system was introduced almost 2 decades ago through the World Summit on the Information Society process that we have further developed to serve as a platform for multi-stakeholder, open, inclusive, bottom-up, and transparent dialogue for a better human-centric internet. And this system continues to be advanced and exists only because of you and others like you. Every single person that sits now in this room, listens to us online, or contributes to any of the now 155 national, regional, sub-regional, and youth IGFs, and of course, the global IGF, deserves the credit for this robust system of IGFs. The United Nations strongly supports such people-centered systems, and this is recognized in the Secretary General's roadmap for digital cooperation, as well as in Our Common Agenda. And we will all continue to work for an even better framework. For example, just recently, we saw the inaugural IGF process led by and for stakeholders from small island developing states. People from countries as far as Vanuatu and Solomon Islands are to Haiti and Trinidad and Tobago, gathered together and discussed sensitive digital policy challenges that these communities face. This is the power of the internet, and that is the power of the people-led process. No physical distance is an absolute for people to get together, exchange ideas, and inspire improvements. But the starting point is always that people get to know each other, and that is a highly important value that comes from regional IGFs. These meeting points for us all create conditions for synergies and cooperations. I want to thank the APR IGF, its multi-stakeholder steering committee, its secretariat.asia, for working tirelessly and continuously to ensure that we have meeting point for all from Asia and the Pacific regions. The Secretariat has had the pleasure to participate in a few regional IGFs this year, and just as convened at the African IGF, European IGF, and the Caribbean IGF, everything we discuss here and everything we agree or disagree on will be a valuable input to the 17th annual IGF meeting, where we can continue brainstorming until good ways forward are found. I hope that many of you will take active participation in the IGF 2022, hosted by the government of Ethiopia and Addis Ababa from the 20th of November until the 2nd of December. The program is available at the IGF website, and I am sure it allows everyone to track their passion and expertise through its over 300 sessions. I'm about to get in trouble with Anju, but one more paragraph. This year's IGF in Africa is particularly important for Asia and the Pacific, as achievements from there will track for all of you to build on and ensure we do even more in 2023, when the 18th annual IGF meeting will come to your region, hosted by the government of Japan. My team and I arrived here in Singapore from the mission in Japan, and let me just tell you that the enthusiasm and commitment and expertise we saw across the country with the government and multi-stakeholder community gathered around the Japanese National IGF and beyond is a promise for a big year coming up for all of us being part of the IGF. Okay, let me end there. And in closing, I would like to recognize the important role of APNIC as a co-host for this year's APR IGF. And your institutional support for this process is very important, and also for our process. And I hope this good practice will continue. I wish you all an excellent meeting, and apologies.
I keep emphasizing that this is a multi-stakeholder model. We need to focus on the community and our people, but these people don't need to be. I don't know what else to do. But anyway, thank you so much to our speakers. Now I'm going to invite our speakers for the opening plenary. Honorable Timothy Masu, Minister of Information, Communication and Technology. Ilaria Chan from GRAB. Ilaria. Sareem Aziz, representing Meta. Joshua, representing the disability and accessibility community, and Jerong from ICANN. All right, okay, so is everything good? One more, no, I'll stand. Okay, so today's session is about people at the center. How do we get it right? We talk about technology, we talk about the process, but we forget the people. Whenever we talk about technology, how are we inclusive? How do we ensure that it's diverse? How do we ensure that we're including persons with disability, youth, our amazing fellows that are sitting here, and also the marginalized communities, remote islands, people that cannot be part of this forum for various reasons? how do we get it right as a multi-stakeholder family? So I'm going to turn to our minister to just say a few words in terms of what are they doing in PNG in relation to the key achievements in PNG, and how are you making sure that people are at the center of digital transformation? I know.
We never thought about
this. Okay. I know it's about technology, but we're not getting it right now. Please forgive me. Please go ahead, sir.
All right. Thank you very much, Sandro. And I think it's good morning or it's good afternoon in Singapore. I think it's still good morning. Good morning, everyone. Greetings from Papua New Guinea. And on behalf of my government, the Prime Minister, Honorable James Marape, the 11th Parliament has been installed. This is my first overseas trip as Minister. And I'm very happy to be here in Singapore with, of course, my colleague Minister, the Minister for Internal Securities in PNG, Honorable Peter Chamalili Jr., and our team of officers from both these ministries. Before I start, I want to also acknowledge Chengatai Masongo, the UN Secretariat for IGF, of course, acknowledge Paul Wilson of the Director General, and thank you all for inviting us to attend this very important meeting. Now, the wide and various views of people centered technology and internet in areas of ICT, broadcasting, and other technology-driven fields. It is about putting people at the center and front of our delivery of government to our citizens. The most recent earthquake, with its epicenter in Leh, in the Morobe province, is an example of natural disasters and political challenges. We are still way behind in addressing the digital divide. There is a great digital divide, and the earthquake has had damaging impact on our people. Our national disaster geohazard offices are investing in technology to improve our monitoring of seismic activities at observatories, etc. However, there is more that can be done in terms of technology upgrade, coordination, and assessment. In the digital services, we refer to as the citizen-centric. Citizens are entitled to up-to-date news, information, and deserve to have access to government services in the most efficient and effective manner. Technology is therefore an enabler for people-centered service and focus. It requires an effective coordination mechanism as well as creating a conducive environment for collaboration and cooperation among all key stakeholders in order to address digital divide and focus on people-centered digital transformation and digital government. And for Papua New Guinea, a country that is just beginning to embrace digital transformation, I believe the government must take the lead in coordinating among all stakeholders through government to government, government to citizens, and government to businesses. This is the approach that we are taking under this current PNG government. In terms of governance, we have recently passed a Digital Government Act, which provides for a ministerial committee on ICT, supported by a National ICT Sector Coordinating Committee, which is a technical advisory team to the ministerial committee. This committee is now tasked to guide the digital transformation within government and its interactions with the citizens and business. Equally important, we have taken the approach of focusing on delivering digital services within government to the citizens and to the businesses. And we are establishing partnership with the industry, including the ICT clusters and SMEs, to be the channels of delivery of these services. We are working on a number of policies and plans. And in our effort to centralize the coordination of digital transformation in government, we have restructured and strengthened a key institution, and that is the Department of ICT, to be the lead agency mandated by the recently passed Digital Government Act. And we are working on a number of policies and plans to give us strategic directions in the areas of digital infrastructure and connectivity, digital skills, digital safety, cybersecurity, financial inclusion, and entrepreneurship and innovation. These, I believe, are the key enablers for delivering digital service to our people and businesses. We are developing an infrastructure rollout plan coordinated through the Department of ICT, and we target to have connectivity to all parts of Papua New Guinea, particularly the rural Papua New Guinea, by 2027. Again, this plan encourages partnership between the government and the industry to drive the connectivity. In PNG, primary and secondary schools is present in every district and rural areas of the country. We also have health facilities in those areas as well. Our strategic move is to focus on connecting to those areas, which will bring more connectivity to most of our rural areas of Papua New Guinea. My vision and my view as minister responsible is to have at least connections to most of these areas where we have schools and health facilities, because our country is so diverse, and of course, geographically, we have a lot of mountains, and a lot of our people still live in those remotest areas in our country. So the last mile access technology is to bring connectivity to schools and to health centers and other government agencies in those districts that are remote. And the approach to take will be a subject of consultation with all key stakeholders. And I will be pleased to hear from all of you also, and experts that are present here today. In terms of cyber safety, just before I finish, I know my time must be up already. I know someone is peeping on me. In terms of cybersecurity, the government has built on the success of hosting APEC 2018 cybersecurity efforts. A national cybersecurity center is being redesigned and operationalized into a coordinating center. We have plans to open up its capabilities to other state agencies in specialized areas of cybercrime, censorship, anti-money laundering, and emergency responses, to name a few, who will be using the core technology to carry out their respective mandates. There is ongoing work on strengthening our cybersecurity capacity and capabilities, but I stress here, the cybersecurity is everyone's business, and I will need regional support and collaboration from our partners, some which I am already meeting and talking to. Ladies and gentlemen, these are the efforts of the Papua New Guinea government, which is embarking on to raise its vision for digital transformation, to be guided by those of you that have advanced efforts in addressing digital transformation. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you,
My time is up.
Honorable Minister. Thank you so much. And you've highlighted the key. Technology. Anyway, he highlighted last mile connectivity and also meaningful connectivity, which is very important when we are talking about digital transformation, e-government services, and also cybersecurity. I'm going to go to turn to Elaria Chan. So as the group advisor on tech and social impact for GRAB, can you provide some examples of human-centric approaches that GRAB is using?
Of course. Good morning. Thank you so much for having me. Just a show of hands, who has used Grab app here? Wonderful. I would encourage people who haven't used it to use it and give us feedback. So for anyone who has not used Grab, we are a leading super app here in Southeast Asia. We're headquartered in Singapore, but we are also present in 8 countries in Southeast Asia and in over 480 cities. We were founded in 2012 and have since evolved from a people call us Uber of Southeast Asia and transportation app, and evolved into now also a deliveries app, which we have food delivery and grocery delivery, and also last mile package delivery, and also financial services, a fintech app, which we have lending, we have payments, we have micro insurance, we also have wealth management services. And today in this region, we are just very humbled and very proud and happy to say we're category leaders in all 3 of our core services, but we're just scratching the surface. People-centric. So people love looking at apps thinking it's all about the interface, the design, and it's about creating an app that is addictive and good, which it is important. But I think that what's important about especially stories in Southeast Asia is to understand the people of Southeast Asia. So Grab was founded actually when our co-founders Kuei Ling Tan and Anthony Tan were classmates at Harvard Business School, and they took a class together called Business at the Base of the Pyramid, which helps them understand how the needy actually would be able to adopt services. And then they're from Malaysia. So actually our app started in Malaysia as a taxi app because back then it was quite dangerous actually to order taxis. Our co-founder Hui Ling was working at McKinsey Consulting and had very late hours. And when she goes home at night, she would call her mom, and it would be a human GPS tracking system of telling her mom exactly where she is so that when she doesn't get home, they can call the police. And I think a lot of countries actually also have the same problem, which is how Grab started, solving safety. And as we solve safety and as we started expanding into other countries and recruiting drivers, we realized a lot of drivers actually did not have bank accounts. A lot of our early Grab representatives and executives have to go to banks to say, can you open a bank account for our drivers? Then we realized this region actually has a very serious underbanked issue. Right now, 6 in 10 are under or unbanked in the region, which means that they probably store cash under their beds. And that's very dangerous. And so we started solving the issue of opening bank accounts and thinking about financial inclusion. We opened bank accounts for our drivers, and we also realized that cars are not very affordable here in relation to salary, and we have to finance and help finance the vehicles and offer loan products to these drivers. And that was actually the dawn of financial services for Grab. Maybe I'll just share a few simple stories because that's really what this is all about, people stories. For our delivery system, because over the pandemic, a lot of hawkers here in Singapore are offline. They are traditional mini stalls of very delicious food, but operated by uncles and aunties that probably are a little older, and they do not go online. And it was very hard to generate foot traffic, which was the traditional way of offline business. So we basically collaborated with the government and we brought them online. We helped introduce them to the app, and we introduced to how to bundle their orders within a few hawkers so that they could share the costs of the commission and be able to sell food together. Over the pandemic, there was pent-up demand for fruits and fresh food. So over a 5-day period, 100 tons of lychee was being transacted in Vietnam. And that was just, again, stretching the surface. We also saw that there were many people who needed microinsurance service. So we offered microinsurance as low as 10 cents in Singapore, and over a 2-year period, over 130 million microinsurance products on critical car accidents were being transacted. We had a rice stall farm micro entrepreneur who actually 3x'd his business because he was able to use our Grab Merchant app to learn how to go online. The story goes on. But I think that what is very important is that economic empowerment, digital inclusion, financial inclusion has to be actually at the core of a lot of these technology platforms, at least for us, when we're solving safety and financial inclusion problems. We are just getting started. This is a population of over 120% mobile penetration in these countries, but yet only a third of merchants are online, which means we have such a long way to go. And so I would say, how are we people-centric? We just need to solve everyday problems for everyday people.
Thank you so much, Ilaria. I agree with the last statement. Josh, how can we ensure an inclusive approach when it comes to persons with disabilities? How can we include them when we're talking about technology and the process?
Okay, thanks. So thank you all for having me here, by the way. And before I answer the question, I'll take some time to introduce myself. So hello, everyone. My name is Josh Sang. I direct the, thank you. Thank you, Tim. Yeah. So where was I? Right. Yeah. So I direct the Digital Accessibility Services Division at Edge Empathy, which is a local nonprofit organization here in Singapore. And we are really proud to be one of the key partners for SG Enable, which is one of the leading disability agencies here in Singapore. So I'll talk a little bit about what I do, but I think to address the elephant in the room, I'll talk about my disability. So I am vision impaired, I am legally blind, and I was diagnosed with congenital glaucoma at the age of 7. Over the years, I lost my eyesight gradually, and by the time I was 16, I could no longer read or write and see people's facial expressions. And so one thing I realized really early on was that access to digital technology was going to be the key to my ability to gain access to things like employment and even things like entertainment. You know, these are things that you don't think about. But how would a blind person use something like YouTube or Netflix or Spotify, right? These are very sort of obscure topics that are not always talked about. And at the time, whenever I would encounter an issue related to accessibility on software or even in person at things like events, I just thought that was part and parcel of my life. You know, I didn't think that I could give any feedback. You know, who would listen to me? I'm part of the minority. And I think one of the turning points for me when I realized that I do have a voice and I can contribute to this area in a meaningful way was when my university approached me. And they were saying at the time, you know, we are going to be launching the first freshman orientation that's going to be online in certain components. And we want to test the digital accessibility. And you know, as a student, I had other things to do, you know, things to study for and friends to meet. And so I was like, okay, sure, good for you. And then they said, we'll pay you. And then I started going, you're going to pay me for my time? And they explained to me, yes, this is going to be really important because, you know, obviously we need to be able to cater to the students who have disabilities, including people with vision impairments. And so I gave them that feedback that was able to help their website become more accessible to people with vision impairments. And that was a really eye-opening, forgive the pun, experience for me because if you know me long enough, you will see these vision puns and eye puns come about because I'm not afraid to make them. But yeah, so that was an eye-opening moment for me when I realized that my voice was meaningful and that I could contribute meaningfully to the discussion of including people with disabilities in our online services and in our communities at large. And so that's at the heart of the work that I do today, working at Edge Empathy and working with partners like SG Enable. And so I'll be really happy to talk more about that later. But for now, in the interest of time, I'll leave it at there. But thank you all for having me. And I'm looking forward to having a great conversation about accessibility for people with disabilities like me.
It's fantastic to have you here. Josh, thank you so much. I have to say, assistive technologies are very expensive. So you can imagine how difficult it is. It's also about meaningful connectivity, but you need assistive technologies, affordable assistive technologies. And what Josh said, meaningful engagement. Don't just say you are to be included because you have to fill in a feedback form. Include them because you actually are genuine about including them in the process. Okay, now let's go to Serene. Do you want to focus on Meta or should we focus on private sector? Private sector? Okay, so in terms of closing the digital divide, and you know, how do we put people at the center of technology? Can you give us examples of what Meta is doing, but also, you know, private sector, how do we make sure that they understand meaningful connectivity as well?
Thank you, Anju, for having me and pleasure to be here. First of all, maybe I'll introduce myself. My name is Sareem. I am the vice chair for the Asia Internet Coalition, which is the only industry body which actually includes Grab and many regional leading tech companies from Apple, Google, Meta, but also regional ones like Grab, Rakuten, Line, and others. So I'm also director for South Asia Public Policy at Meta. As you know, this is a region which is largely still unconnected or underconnected. And so this issue of digital divide and inclusive internet is very close to my work and my heart for this region. I'll say, I think as an industry, we saw that pandemic was sort of, played a forcing function in digitization and digital transformation around the world, especially in countries where, where we saw, according to McKinsey, a digital transformation happened 25 times faster during the pandemic than it did under normal times. Now, that was great in terms of it showed the unprecedented power of the internet. But at the same time, I think it exposed how wide this digital divide really was. We talk about digital natives, we talk about digital immigrants in our societies that we need to invest. But think about if you were in the pandemic and you were in a lockdown and you did not have access to the internet, unfortunately, that gap, you'd be a digital outcast. You'd be treated like a digital outcast. You wouldn't have access to basic services that you would rely on. So I think that was an opportunity for companies like us. At Meta, we realized a long time ago that it's not enough to connect the world, that we have a responsibility to go beyond and help people build community, but also help bring them closer together. And that means bringing them closer to not just people, but to services, to businesses, to things that matter to them. So, a good example of this is the Telecom Infra Project, which Meta is a member of, along with 500 different community members, that really looks at building sustainable connectivity solutions, making them more affordable. This is not just relevant for today, but for the next few decades. I'm personally very excited about, we talk about what would the internet be like if we were to recreate that today. But, if you think about the metaverse, that's an excellent opportunity for us to get it right. It should not be controlled by one company. It should not be built by one company. It needs to be co-owned. So I think that's where a lot of the industry is looking at, is to say, well, look, yes, you think back to 1970s when we invented the TCP/IP protocol. Like here everybody takes that for granted, right? It's become ubiquitous. It's a standard. It's used by everywhere. It doesn't matter what technology, what device, what you use. We are all using TCP/IP. The internet needs to be inclusive in that way. And as we build forward, as technologies and standards are built, the experiences need to be inclusive. One of the things I want to highlight, which is an important policy tool, is the Inclusive Internet Index. That's something that's commissioned by Meta, but also run by the Economist Intelligence Unit. It's in its 6th year. It's a ranking of 100 countries, and it measures inclusive internet. We call it the I3 across 4 different areas. The first is availability. So the second is affordability, which is important. But we also want to focus on things like readiness and relevance. And what we saw during the pandemic in this research, that even though accessibility, and availability increased, affordability increased, but there were still challenges on both relevance of local services for local communities, as well as issues of readiness. And that's where digital literacy has such an important role to play. So we're continuing to invest across those different areas we partner with different organizations to invest in better connectivity solutions. The only way to solve this is to create open, sustainable, disaggregated solutions that are able to, be adopted by different countries with different cost factors and different solutions. So that's the focus area for us going forward.
Thank you so much, Sareem. That was really great. And I'm happy that you mentioned the index, which I think is relevant for some people here that need to know. So thank you so much for talking about that. Zhurong is from ICANN. So I'm talking, we're going to talk about policies. How can we make sure that we have people-centered policy making?
Thank you. So hi, everybody. My name is Zhurong. I work for ICANN. I'm the head of the ICANN Asia Pacific office, and I live in Singapore. So for those visiting Singapore for the first time, probably since the start of the pandemic, welcome. Welcome back to Singapore. It's great to see old friends and new faces. Some of you I met over the past 2 years only remotely, but now I get to see you all face to face, so I'm very happy for that. And the foundation for that that we could have gotten through the pandemic is because we have the internet, and I'm very grateful for being in this space. First of all, introduce a bit about ICANN. It's not the exciting things, you know, when you think about the internet, like Web3 or Metaverse or Grab Super App. None of these things. My wife, she calls me a Web1 dinosaur. And we are in the space where we coordinate the internet's unique identifiers. I think most of you in the room might not even know what this is to begin with. It's kind of like a loose analogy is we no longer think about who builds the roads and maintain the roads. ICANN is basically, we are the organization behind the ones that maintain the roads of the internet. By maintaining domain names, the unique identifiers have 3 things. For the internet to work, you have to have 3 things. An IP address, so you can find the device and connect with each other. It's very hard to remember the IP address, so we use domain names. So like www.facebook.com. I don't know, Meta, is there a new domain name that you guys are using now? And all the computers or devices have to speak the same language. In other words, you code them with the same protocols. The governance of these 3 key pillars, names, numbers, and protocols, traditionally is internet governance. So we're in the Internet Governance Forum. I think it's useful for me to share this broadly. But today, more and more of the issues tied to the social issues we have day to day are happening on the internet. And the governance of the internet and the governance on the internet are becoming more and more intertwined. Now, I won't go into that too much, but I'll come back to the question that Andrew asked about policy making. Now, I talked about internet governance in the unique identifier space. So for ICANN, we look after policies for domain names. And we have the APNIC meeting here. So they look after the policies for the distribution of IP addresses. And for those who are from the technical community, you might know global standards are made at the IETF or the Internet Engineering Task Force. All of these organizations work with global communities to set the policies or standards that keep the internet working. Now, policy making in internet governance is multi-stakeholder model. You hear this all the time, which means that anybody who is interested can participate. So everybody here, you have a voice, you're free to participate. The door is always open. And we're very happy for that to happen. And it's important for us to remain very inclusive. Now, I use one example very quickly just to talk about how ICANN is working towards an even more inclusive internet. The topic is on internationalized domain names. Now, we're all very familiar with domain names that's like, you know, facebook.com, for example, is in English alphabets. But the ICANN community has decided that we should open up domain names to include domain names that's longer and can be in different scripts. So you can have domain names in Chinese, Arabic, Cyrillic, in your own scripts. And in the context of disabilities, for Josh, for example, if you have domain names in your own language, when you dictate on your machine, you can easily access the domain name that you need without having to type. So that makes a huge difference. Now, in terms of policy making, how the ICANN go about doing this is that we have to work with the local communities from each of these language communities to determine which character or which letter can even be a domain name. It's actually a very challenging task. So even in the context of, say, the Chinese community, they have to get together and determine, oh, can traditional Chinese characters versus simplified Chinese characters, should they be interchangeable? What if you have characters that overlap with Japanese and Korean? How do you reconcile some of these issues? What about Arabic characters? Those of you who know, you have like the tones, the different sounds that you have to include. Do you include them as part of the domain name or not? So there are so many of these issues. What ICANN did was we worked with all the local communities for them to form bottom-up generation panels. So the panels then decide which character or script can be a domain name. Now, this ties back to the heart of policy making for ICANN, is that you have to work with the communities themselves to determine, for them to determine for themselves what is useful for them, so that they can, when it comes to using domain names, they can use it for their own purposes. So I'm very proud to report that out of the work that we have done in the past few years, we've worked on 28 different scripts. 19 out of the 28 scripts that we've worked on are from our Asia Pacific region. Most of that work is done and now integrated into a label generation tool. When we open up for the next round of new top-level domains, these local scripts will be available for use. And it's thanks to the communities we have within the Asia Pacific region that really set this standard and the policies that we have that allow us to move forward. So thank you.
Thank you, Jerome. Without community, we cannot have these standards. Thank you. I'm going to now turn to the audience because this is about you. And I will ask if anyone has any questions. Let's keep it to questions because we don't have enough time. And Cheryl, my timekeeper, will give me a hard time. So let's keep it to questions and short, please. We'll go to the audience. And then I'll come back to our panelists to say a few words in terms of closing remarks.
Hello, everyone. My name is...
Please, can you say your name and please stand up. If it's possible, please stand up so everyone can see. Thank you.
My name is Lokendra. I'm from Bangalore, India. And my question is to Mr. Sareem. So you spoke about how Meta is promoting digital inclusivity in Southeast Asia and other regions. But at the same time, we also know that Facebook or Meta as a company also promotes a walled garden approach to internet, which is not very much aligned with the original idea of the internet that came about in 80s and 90s. So how do you look at this conflicting sides of private sector internet companies? At one end, they're promoting digital inclusivity, and at the other, they're making walled gardens, dividing the internet. Thank you.
Okay. I'm not necessarily agree with the walled garden analogy, but I'll say I think when we think about partnerships and multi-stakeholder forums, you know, we can't build the infrastructure on our own. We always have to partner with local partners. I think for us, it's more about giving people tools and access to different tools. You know, for us, if we think about a business, we don't want a business only to advertise on Facebook or only to advertise on Instagram. They should be having a Facebook page, an Instagram page, Google search. There's so many different services they can use. The point is we want to enable the business to actually be successful. So it's about investing in tools and skills. A lot of the programs we run in countries across Southeast Asia are focused on digital empowerment, where, you know, it's how do you start an online business? Many of the people who use our services, they don't know how to build a website, right? They don't know how to code, for example, but they can set up a page. Similarly, their Facebook is not the only medium they're using. They're using other services as well. So I think the more successful the business, the more revenue they will make, the more people they'll hire, the more contribution to the digital economy. That's how I think most of the private sector sees it. I don't think no one's trying to build a walled garden. I think AIC is a perfect example of that. We have 17 member companies. We have Apple, we have Google, we have Meta. We're also competing. We have Twitter. But at the same time, we realize that a successful business on one platform actually generates, you know, it leads to a sort of a chain effect, and you can kind of creates economies of scale for us to help succeed. You cannot be successful on just one medium and one platform, and that's the beauty of the internet.
Great, thank you. Any other? Okay, Bhaskar, please.
Thank you very much. First, I would like to say thank you to APRIGF and APC for respecting the principle of disability movement, nothing about us without us. I am Bhaskar Bhattacharjee, a blind person, came here with your support to raise digital inclusion. I would like to request you all, please respect 3 important commitments globally you have made. That is UN Convention of Rights of Persons with Disabilities. Number 2, UN Disability Inclusion Strategy. Number 3, SDG. where no one left behind was the core principle. Lastly, I would like to request you, please ensure accessibility, affordability, and awareness to ensure inclusive internet and accessibility for persons with disabilities and all. Thank you.
Thank you, Bhaskar. I know no one should be left behind. Thank you so much. Any questions? I see someone raising the hand. Okay, Mubashir, can someone help Mubashir, please, with the mics? Our MSG. Please stand up. Thank you.
Kia ora tātou. I'm Ricky. I'm from New Zealand and
Okay.
acknowledge a lot of the words that have been said today and also the Asia Foundation for enabling me to be here. The question I have, or the part that I think might have been missed in terms of a discussion point around access is the natural bias, which we're seeing a lot more, obviously, artificial intelligence playing a part in terms of everything that we're doing. And there'd be a natural bias in that whole process that would come about from the people that actually set up those algorithms. So how do you mitigate that bias to make sure that it doesn't actually hinder accessibility? That's an open question to the panel. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Josh, do you want to answer that?
All right, so I can speak from two different perspectives. Number one, as an end user, I think it's really important to acknowledge the benefits that artificial intelligence brings, which I know that's not what you were trying to do, was discount the benefits. But for example, and actually, I'm not saying this just because Sarab is here, but Meta's services like Instagram and Facebook actually have automatic alternate text captioning that they embed into their images. So they use AI to detect what is potentially in an image and give you a suggestion on what it could be, which could include anything from the number of people in a photo to what's their expressions and even other objects that might be in the frame as well. And so that's incredibly useful for someone like me, because maybe someone is saying like, feeling so blessed with a birthday cake emoji, and I might have some impression that they are celebrating their birthday, but I wouldn't know from the picture. But let's say using Facebook or Instagram's automatic alternate text tool, it can pick up on things like, text that might say, happy birthday, 10 people standing in the frame, something along those lines. So artificial intelligence is an incredibly powerful tool, but you are right that biases can influence the outcome of data that is produced by artificial intelligence, right? This is a problem that we definitely have to acknowledge. And so from the end user perspective, people like me, we need to be able to give feedback to these organizations. And so through things like, consumer feedback surveys, or even the work that I do, which I'll elaborate on a little bit, these are platforms through which people with disabilities, or even, just end users, like everyone here, would be able to give their voice. So actually, this is really, this is why conferences like this and others that happen all over the world are incredibly important. The second is from the top level, right? So from the organizational level or the government level. So we have some representation here, and I'm sure some of you here are also working in your own respective organizations to advocate for better understanding of things like eliminating biases from AI, or advocating for accessibility within your internal organizations or software services. And so when I work with SG Enable, the work we do at Edge Empathy, we connect the dots, if you want to think of it that way. So we approach organizations and companies, like recently we worked with Fair Price Singapore, and previously before that, we just finished a project with the National Library Board. We work with these companies to make sure that their services are well suited to people with disabilities. And then on the other end, we rope in people with disabilities to be able to give their feedback directly to these organizations. And we use frameworks like WCAG to sort of structuralize this kind of feedback that's given. And so I think in short, what we need to do is involve people at the heart of the matter, which is the entire point of this conference today. And by the way, I forgot to do this earlier. I'm going to shout out what we do with SG Enable. If you are particularly in the finance or transportation or healthcare services, and you want to make the services more inclusive for people like me, reach out. You can find me on LinkedIn and YouTube. So yeah, I hope that answers your question in a direct way and gives some perspective on the matter.
Yes, he said yes, and he put a thumbs up for you. We'll go to a female now because we've been getting all this male to ask these questions. I'm all about diversity and inclusion. So we'll go to a remote participant first, and then we will come to, is that Sarai or Letitia? Sarai. Okay. Please, Jennifer.
Thank you, Anju. This is a question from a remote participant. Ying Chu Chen from Taiwan. I want to know how Grab to provide financial inclusion services in different countries. How to make government engage and trust.
That's a billion-dollar question. How do you make any human trust anyone? It's by repeated execution, where you execute with integrity. It's also requires a lot of communication and understanding. Maybe I'll give an example. Financial inclusion, especially telling someone that an app or a computer is trustworthy enough for you to put your life savings in, it requires a lot of hand-holding. So for us, for example, even during the COVID period, we held workshops. We went to elderly communities to actually handhold them into describing what a fintech app is. And it takes longer to explain, but once someone understands and sees that it can be executed with safeguards, we actually had almost 4 times as much response and engagement from the elderly community. And I think one of the things that is very important too is a private-public partnership, because in many ways, what we're doing is unknown to the government, and we need to be very transparent, and we need to have stories of everyday people in the center of what we're doing to be available. I think that one of the important things to know is that cash is actually can put people's lives in danger, especially in this region. We've actually had drivers where there were murder stories when people would be targeted. Drivers would be targeted at the end of the day because they have so much cash in the car. And how do we actually allow technology to be at its full glory and full power? Technology, when harnessed well, is so powerful. Not only can it help people go from the invisible economy, informal economy, into the visible economy, help things like bank accounts to be created. It can be a credit proxy, right? Some drivers here who, for example, who do not have any record and cannot get any banks to lend them money because they repeatedly get paid by us, they make their payments, they have 5-star ratings, and we see this on a repeated basis, then we can extend loans because that's a credit proxy. That's powerful. It goes on, but I would say that, yes, to gain trust requires communication, multi-party participation, and repeated execution of integrity and transparency.
Great, thank you. And it's also an issue when it comes to online gender-based violence and also technology-based violence. You have to think about those women, especially who are going through a lot of issues when it comes to using these technologies. I'm now going to ask Sarai. Sarai, please stand up. Thanks.
Thank you for the opportunity. I'm Sarai Tevita from Samoa. My question goes to Honorable Timothy. Can we organize the next Asia Pacific in the Pacific? And how can we work together to ensure we bring the marginalized communities in discussion? Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's a question I've been actually looking for because you know, as a bigger nation in the Pacific, I think Papua New Guinea should be taking lead in bringing the Pacific together. One of my visions is to bring the Pacific ministers and of course the ICT family to have a conference in Port Moresby, and so we can share our experiences together. But most importantly is that in PNG we are now beginning to catch up with the world in terms of technology advancement, And since 2 years ago, I took over this ministry as Minister for ICT. We have done so much in our government to look into this area, to embrace what is happening in the world. We're kind of the last frontier right now. We started this movement to catch up with the world, and I think our attendance today is to learn and to listen, so that we can progress. And we are looking for partners. We want people to partner with us so that we can advance this technology issues in our country and of course in the Pacific. I think the Pacific is a very important region right now. And as far as ICT is concerned, we have to get together. We must come together to making sure that we share our information. We are also a disaster-prone region, and we need to have some collaborations here. And I've actually flagged this down with my counterpart in Australia, and of course within our government and our department to organize some meetings for us, and this could give us that avenue of sharing the information that we have and information you have, so that we can connect each other. So internet is so important to us. In times of disaster, we need to move the information quickly, and importantly is to reach out to our people. And of course, we have the issue of Tonga, with the volcano, the disaster that took place there. So, and we have the earthquake in Port Moresby that happened on Sunday. So collaboration in the Pacific is the way to go. And please, my department and my government is organizing a summit next year. I would like to invite you and your country to attend this meeting as well. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Honorable Minister. Okay, timekeeper said I have 5 minutes, which means 1 minute each. 1 minute each. Wrap up quickly. Okay, 1 minute. 1 minute quick wrap up. What does the internet look like in 20 to 30 years? And if you had superpowers like Superman, Superwoman, or Wonder Woman, what would you change or not change? That's your final 1 minute remark. 1 minute. We'll start with
okay, so where we are right now, the internet, we have a very resilient network on the one hand, but the single internet that we are all sitting on is also very fragile. I like to quote my foreign minister from Singapore. He talked about the state of the world today seems to be like pre-World War I. And I tend to agree. Nobody wants war at the time. The world was extremely interdependent, but the series of measures and countermeasures resulted in war. And we likewise seem to be in that kind of situation, geopolitically on the one hand, on the internet as well, where we are seeing increasing regulatory measures on the one hand, the competition between some companies and emerging technologies, they potentially could break the internet. And it's up to us here together to help to keep the internet going.
1 minute.
Thank you very much. Come and spend all your money in PNG. Help us to improve our internet services. We still need to reach the rural population. I'm having a disaster right now in my country, and information is not moving so fast. I have some infrastructure being destroyed, of course, through the natural disaster and of course through vandalism. But I think if I had all the powers in the world, I would make PNG the top nation in the world to have internet more easily accessible by people of our country. Of course, just quickly, thank you, Cheryl. We are very careful in what is brought in by internet, because the internet is a world on its own. It opens up a lot of things, the good and the bad and the ugly. So, a lot of things that we want to filter into our country, and a lot of things that we don't want to come into our country is also something that we need to be very, very specifically looking into. So in my 1 minute, come and spend your money in PNG.
All right. So I'm trying to make this quick. If I could say in one sentence what I would like everyone to take away here, I would like it to, in my lifetime, I really am optimistic that someday we can reach a point where people like me being on this stage is no longer considered unusual, right? Right now, the state of the world for people with disabilities is quite sad, you know. Society has failed us in many ways. 50 to 90% of people with disabilities don't have a job. In cases like, you know, natural disasters or sanctions or war, people with disabilities are often really left behind and affected negatively. And, you know, even today, people are still shocked when they see me use things like YouTube or my phone. But I am very heartened to see a lot of the progress that's being made. And what I really hope to achieve, and I have made it my life's work to achieve, is for people like me to no longer be considered unusual and to be accepted as part of society like everyone else. So that's what I'm looking forward to.
Thank you.
So if I had a crystal ball, I think I'd definitely kind of echo what Josh and others have said, but I want to say, I think 50 years from now, I mean, almost half the world is still not connected or underconnected. I'm an optimist, and I think we can get there in terms of, you know, we talk so much about internet and technology. I mean, for me, like, I think all this should eventually become ubiquitous. Nobody is here talking about TCP/IP. Maybe some people are in some of the technical sections, but I do want to see the internet, you know, kind of have the standards base, the foundations to be strong, so that we talk about experiences, we talk about good governance. I think as industry, the AIC and most of the industry, no one is against regulation, but I think we are definitely concerned about the fragmentation, which has already been mentioned a few times this morning. That is a threat in terms of digital inclusion and making sure that narrowing that digital divide. So from my perspective, I think the future is exciting because it is an internet which is multi-stakeholder. It's not owned by one or a few companies. It's also one where you know, it really doesn't matter what your endpoint is. You know, we've seen 50 years of personal computing, of mainframes, desktops, laptops, mobile devices. I'm excited about the next 50 years, which is going to be way beyond that. And
1 minute, Sarim.
Thank you so much. Just to want to affirm what Josh said, one of our most highly rated 5-star drivers is a deaf driver. And because on our app now, we can have a seamless way of notifying the consumer that he's deaf and ensure a very good communication and pickup experience. People like him is able to earn a living on Grab platform. My wish is that people will understand the power of technology. Technology can be a very powerful deflationary tool. It deflates the amount of time it takes for you to find a right service, deflates the time wasted to match demand and supply. It deflates all kinds of things, and it's able to give inclusion to everybody. My wish is that no longer in 20, 30 years is internet just used for elites, is no longer only us people like us who are qualified sitting in Grand Hyatt to discuss the future of internet, but everyday people, the people who are in a remote island in Indonesia who's lining up 3 hours just to get a bank account, or someone in Malaysia who never gets considered for a loan. I hope the internet can have the power to give inclusion and the inroads to the masses and not just to the elites. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, that's it. That's a wrap up. Did you enjoy the session? Yes? Yes. A round of applause to our panelists and to our opening panelists as well. Okay, so we will do a quick gift giving. I hope you're giving it to me, Paul. So we'll do that quickly and we'll have a photo session, and then they are all available after this. I want you to come.
All right, that's all for our first morning. So we'll be closing for the session as of now. So for those of you who are online, thank you so much for joining us. And for those of you who are here, it's lunchtime, all right? So as for lunchtime, you'll be provided a voucher for you. So lunch will be at a place called the Common Man Coffee Roaster. It's actually right down the building. So all you need to do later on is to move up to the registration counter where you can get your voucher for your lunch. And how to proceed to the venue is that you just take the lift all the way down to ground floor. exit the main entrance and turn left and just walk a little bit. Then you can see there's like a very big common man, I guess the banner there, and that's where the venue is, right? So, and just to update a little bit, so please be sure to be back here at 1:20 p.m. and be ready for our next session. It will be an input from TIOF on data-centric digital rights. And see you, and I hope you enjoy your lunch. Thank you.